If you don't know who I am, I'm Strongpig, and this is going to be our premiere episode of Evening with the Pig. In this series, I'm going to be developing. I'm basically going to be sitting down with a bunch of esports personalities from the UK university esports scene, and we're going to be talking about, their journey within esports. We're going to be talking about their, starting out, what drove them to be in this industry, what sort of path they took in their education, their first sort of gigs, any tips and tricks they have or anyone else coming up, and overall just having a bit of a chill time and just shooting the shit, really, without using disappropriate languages. But today we got someone who I wouldn't want anyone else for our debut episode to really be in. I know, I'm giving you the proper introduction.
Too much credit.
Well, he is very special. He is, you might know him from his commentating jobs for companies like the NUEL and Planet 9. He has also worked on his own esports projects, like the unofficial, official Japanese League of Legends series. And he's also recently gone into hosting seminars, with him recently hosting a seminar for NUEL as well. So he is a man of many traits, and he is also, most importantly, LSBU alumni. So there's no one we'd rather have on board. So Alex Swan, from the pig to the swan. How are you doing, man?
I'm not too bad, thank you, Pig. I'm actually really happy to be here. It does what you've just said almost culminates like a year and a half of work, which is kind of a lot to think about, as I didn't realize I'd done so much in such a short space of time. But I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's sort of crazy when someone sort of lists out exactly everything you've done, from the start of when you work on something, and then just have it all listed out on you, and you're just like, wow, like how much stuff has I actually done? How successful has this actually become? And it's just sort of crazy sometimes when you just go through that. Especially know that from myself, setting up this entire society, from the most humble of humble beginnings. It just gets crazy, but you've definitely got a lot on your portfolio, and it should be recognized. But just thank you for coming on board. There's no one else I'd rather have for our first episode.
Pleasure to be here. Let's get into this, I guess.
Yeah, let's get into this. Right, so let's start from the very, very start. So what was sort of your maiden introduction into esports? When did you really get into it, and when did you decide it was an industry you wanted to get into?
My first kind of interaction with esports was way back in the day. I was a big fan of Halo 3 and Halo 2 when I was really young.
Get in.
The old MLG videos. I recently turned on my old Xbox 360. I was going through, and I actually have videos of MLG top 5 plays from MLG Anaheim 2006, and I'm I remember watching that, and it's kind of crazy. Since then I kind of was on and off. I played competitive Magic the Gathering and went semi-pro playing that, and that's Magic the Gathering is honestly the game of my life. I've been playing it on and off, and I'm a second generation player, so kind of sick. I've had good success with that, and I've done some traveling for that, and I won an invitation spot for a tournament in America.
Ooh.
I then kind of just it's really weird to think about. So esports kind of was on and off. I always enjoyed competing in events and the like, but I never really thought too much about esports directly. I was always kind of oh, this is fun, but I never really thought that it in my head it was always the experience and the playing and actually competing and everything. That was just what I did for fun. I completely forgot about there was this whole other industry around esports, which I just completely didn't think about.
So you sort of just stumbled into it, basically, is what you're saying. You focused more on playing, and the better you got down the line, it just sort of became something which, you just became intrinsically part of you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of something that really just evolved with time. I always liked being good at games, but I knew with a lot of my friends, I had a few of those friends that were just naturally really good. Like they would just play League and they'd get to Diamond. They could play a Street Fighter or whatever, and they'd become the best player in the room. I was not that person. Unlike a lot of people, I was not that person. Magic was the only game that I was naturally good at, and card games and kind of understanding strategy. That was my niche, and I could beat my friends that got really good at all games, which was always very satisfying. But I didn't really start thinking about esports as a career till, well, while I was at university, I'll be honest.
Oh, well, how about for a good segue then? So when you got to university, of course, you got to LSBU. LSBU is sort of a very weird sort of university in terms of its history with, electronic esports. I know, for me personally, working with the union, there's been a lot of up and downs, wanting to enter esports, then having nothing to do with esports. Especially from talking to, some of the higher ups from the union, like Declan, of course. So how was that sort of experience of going to LSBU at a time where esports wasn't really a focus? Like, I know from our, pre-talks, you had a lot to say about the union and, your kind of disappointments a lot with it. But how was sort of, finding friends, sort of getting into esports scene during a time where LSBU wasn't really, esports centric compared to now where, considering the circumstances, we're one of the only sports teams actually functioning at the moment.
I guess that would be the case. Yeah, so my experience with the union and kind of esports and everything, honestly, it was outside of university. It was either I was going to other universities to play in their poker societies, because LSBU didn't have one, even though I would have basically it became the exact same kind of thing. If I wasn't necessarily going, I was going to the Red Bull Sphere in Shoreditch.
Oh,
or I was going
love
around
that place.
to. It's so cool, right?
It's so cool. Like,
unlimited Red Bull.
God, like they hosted the best weekly Smash tournaments. Like honestly, like, but yeah, I love that place and I miss it dearly. Like, graduating this year, I'm gonna miss all like the locals, like especially the Meltdown, which is the most dingy place ever. But I fucking miss that place.
Meltdown's another one where I would occasionally go along to. And then through that, I ended up actually in my first year, I ended up going to Central. I think it was UCL. They were holding a Hearthstone and Dota tournament.
Ooh.
I went along to play in the Hearthstone stuff, and I just ended up chatting to people there. And that was pretty much my experience with esports. I was still playing competitive Magic the Gathering, but around that time, I was also just kind of looking for any event or any kind of community to kind of join and talk to, because the university didn't have anything. So I kind of just existed like I was a student, but I didn't join any of the societies because none of the societies was something I liked, and the societies I wanted to be a part of, we just didn't have. And frankly, it's a huge responsibility to create a society, and I was not in a place where I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to put an extra like 50 hours a week into doing that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to focus it much on this talk because I do have someone down the line I really want to get involved in that talk about constructing the society and everything. But it was sort of like an uphill battle, especially a lot of the union types at the time didn't really see the points of having a separate esports society, especially when we had already a gaming, anime, and comic society, which, I loved the guys that set that up and everything, but it just didn't have the infrastructure to really implement esports without us, going on our own sort of area. But yeah, as you were saying.
I mean, Pig, let's be real. I run the LJL, right? Like, that is the Japanese League of Legends casting thing. Yeah. I never joined the anime society, right? and I cosplayed, right? And I always walked in the room, I said hello, and then I'm like, nah, I can't do this today.
Yeah, it was
I think
really...
you know what I mean.
I do know, especially in those early days, it was sort of like, it was very much like a friend group and everything, and they have grown up. In fact, shout-outs, if you're watching this, shout-outs to Ewan, who's the current president of that society. And it is incredible that the fact that we're talking about that society and it's still going, let's just say, like...
Oh yeah, of course it will. Of course it's not gonna die.
There's no way that thing is dying, come on. And I am good friends.
Will come and go again.
Yeah, we are good friends about the Esports Society. Hey, we're gonna be still around. We're not even a society. We're a sports club now, so we've got immunity.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh wow, you're legitimate now.
We're legitimate.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a legitimate body. Though maybe I convince myself otherwise. But anywho. So when introducing, you were talking about, your introductions to varsity esports and everything. You were basically doing it from an outsider, just as someone using your student body to really go to other tournaments to do with students and everything. Like you mentioned UCL, and I know people from UCL. I know they have a very structured sort of esports sense. Was there anyone you sort of met which really got you into really got you connected with the sense? And is there sort of like and when did you sort of like transition from just a player to someone who's getting really involved into the setting up and sort of like the helping out with the running sort of thing? So how was that transition from student to caster?
Student to caster. So I mean, during when I was at that experience with UCL and I did that Hearthstone tournament, I got messaging and talking to this guy called David. I think his surname's David White.
David White.
Don't quote me directly on that. I know David. I know the first name was David. Me and him, we got talking and we ended up doing some Hearthstone casting work together. On the idea that there was going to be another Hearthstone tournament. Oh, I think I died.
No, you're back. You died a little bit, but you're back.
Okay. So I was talking with this guy called David, and he introduced me to kind of what casting was. Obviously, I understood what casting is, and obviously the narration of the game. And at the end of the day, you are an entertainer. Like that is the end all be all. But honestly, it wasn't until I started doing I actually started doing some streaming on like a regular basis that I actually thought about the whole idea of casting and kind of going further. And it wasn't until honestly 2019 September/October, I just joined Brunel University for my MA in game design and theory. And the student body there, they were like, these are the tournaments, whatever, right? Like these were decided like, these are the tournaments, here you go. Purely, if it wasn't for the fact that Magic the Gathering had a tournament going in the NUEL, I probably wouldn't have applied for it because I didn't think I'd be able to play in the tournament.
I see.
Just straight up, I didn't think I'd get a team together. So I was like, well, there's no sense in me competing. I mean, it's Magic. It's literally in my blood. I think I can talk over a game of Magic. I'm very knowledgeable. I've been semi-pro. I can probably figure this out. I applied for it. I got the job, and honestly, since then, I haven't stopped casting.
I see. So it's just sort of like a spur of the moment. Like this is exactly like like I was thinking of. Actually, fun fact. I was actually thinking of applying for. I don't think it was particularly that job as well, but I was thinking I was applying. It was during that sort of era of applications. I think I was actually thinking of applying myself. But maybe just more as an admin, I think, because I've had like myself. I actually have a history in Hearthstone myself, though not mainly Magic the Gathering, but it like I do remember that sort of period of time, like especially when they introduced the Magic the Gathering sort of arena special, because they had an entire series of it when Arena came out, and it was and we were actually also gonna enter a team in that, but we were too late. Like we were literally like a couple of like weeks too late to set up that team. So that would have been.
The price pool for it was so absurd. Like,
really?
It was unreal.
Oh, yeah. How unreal was it?
It was like first place, which was a team, so 3 players split 10 grand between each other for a university tournament.
God, that's crazy.
It's unreal. They paid so much.
They did something similar for NSC. I know you don't want to talk about those guys because you've got a contract with NUEL, but they did something similar.
I cast Hearthstone finals for NSC, so I'm more than allowed to talk about NSC.
Oh, okay, cool. Freelancers, lol.
They paid for the screen.
Oh, really?
Well, so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Daddy Hench. Thank you. Yeah. What was I talking about? But yeah, I remember card game tournaments, especially student ones, like for some reasons paid astronomically a lot. Like our player, who is now an alumni, Daz Legends, got 100 quid for coming third in a Legends of Runeterra tournament, like a monthly one.
Oh,
So
good
yeah,
for him.
yeah, good for
them,
him.
rather.
Shout, it was good for him. Don't worry, I know him. But I know the general thing. But yeah, shout outs to him, and card games are a very interesting thing. So you were mentioning how you were getting into card games, and you got in from Magic the Gathering. But as we all know, most of the things that people know you now for is casting League of Legends, which is a much different environment because it's much more of a slow build into some action-packed sort of team ganks. What would you say? What are the skills that you feel like you've grown as a caster in, coming in from as a card game caster, which is something that's a lot more slow-paced, a lot more focusing on the turns ahead, trying to predict exactly what the opponent's trying to plan out in a particular turn-by-turn basis, to something which is a lot more fast-paced, something that's a lot more user-focused, and something that's just a lot more active in a sense when casting a game of League of Legends.
So a big skill I learned between obviously coming from a trading card game background to a MOBA game was the fact that I inherently already had like a kind of puzzle, kind of trying to break a game down to its bare bones form, because that's what you do in Magic. You go, at the end of the day, this is the correct play because you have all the information of both players' hands, you know all the things are in their deck, you know everything. You just know, in theory, as the caster, what the quote best play is. And in League of Legends, you actually have perfect information when you're casting. The problem is there's so many things going on. League casting, I got a lot better at breaking down and trying to understand exactly what is important. The other big difference for me was I'm a color caster for League of Legends, but I am not very good at League of Legends. I'm okay. If I proper tried, I'd probably be slap banging gold.
Slap banging gold. Ugh.
But oh yeah, I'm not very good. I am a silver scrub, like the epitome of a silver scrub. I've had my account since season 2. I've played ranked since season 3, and I've been in silver since season 3. And I've never gotten out, and at this point I'm kind of like, do I really care? Like I understand how the game works, I understand what's going on, I don't need to be good. And there's this whole idea that Monte Cristo was like, well, would I rather who's famous League of Legends caster?
Yeah, I know Monte Cristo.
So Monty's whole idea was I could grind out and get higher in plat or diamond. Like Monty's famously a platinum caster who was the best color caster of his generation for League of Legends, at least in that era, and he was plat. So he's the epitome of, you don't need to be really good at the game. If you put the time in and you learn how the game works, you can be rewarded. And that is something I learned in League of Legends casting. Like my favorite part to talk about is the pick and ban phase, which is inherently only about known and unknown information. It's, can you do X, Y, or Z? Which is the correct thing to do? Do I want to pick this champion or that champion? And that is the most card gamey bullshit thing. If you mind my French, but it's the most card gamey part of League of Legends. So immediately, obviously, I index on that, and I'm like, okay, well, there is a correct way to play this game, and there is an incorrect way. And first off, it starts with the pick and ban phase. So I've already become, my favorite part of talking about League is just there. But then when I transitioned over, it was important for me to identify skills that from Magic that brought in. So watching build paths, normally understanding the runes that people would typically play. And this was all basic information that honestly, playing with flashcards, watching YouTube tutorials on like the people who are one tricks on these champions, and then going, okay, writing that. You know where I learned how to do that?
Right.
From Magic the Gathering, where I would spend 3 or 4 hours watching one guy play the same deck, and now I don't have to do that. I can watch a 20-minute YouTube video. It's so much easier. I do less work now, and I get better.
That feel when you're talking about like studying cards, because that was like I did that all the time when I was like heavy into Hearthstone, and I'd always lose my patience and just go straight to something that's like really easy but really brainless, like mid-range hunter or something like that. Even, but which, you know, criticize me all you want, but I beat board control in that deck. Still not gonna live that down. Board control, if you're out there.
That's a humble brag.
Board control, if you're out there. I still remember beating you in, I know, Meltdown weekly tournament in your face. Anyway, humble brag over. He is now, you know, very successful Q&A tester for Blizzard, so you'll kick my ass any day. But yeah, that's a very interesting sort of, you know, in like a very interesting sort of way to sort of take it in. You know, it's more about, you know, how much hours you really put into preparing yourself for you know the particular situation, understanding the meta, understanding which sort of, you know, heroes counter other sort of heroes, and thinking more of the big picture, and, you know, trying to predict something, you know, that happens in the middle of the game. One sort of thing which, you know, just recently popped to my mind is how do you really deal with situations which you don't expect? Let's say, you know, someone, how do you say, like, a prediction you came up with during that setup sort of didn't turn out the way it was? How do you sort of try and sell that? How do you sort of build a story from, you know, the plays that you're watching, from, you know, considering the, you know, the people.
Hey guys, this is just me, Michael speaking. I'm editing this right now, and the reason why we paused quickly is because the PC broke down in the middle of the podcast. I did rebuild my PC, so there is some internal issues, but we are working towards fixing them, and in the future there shouldn't be a problem, but, you know, to all the audio listeners, that's why we have a bit of a pause here, so we'll be back in a moment. I hope you guys are doing well. My day was okay.
Sorry about that, guys. And we're just going to continue where we left off. So, as I was saying, we were talking about sort of how we create a story from, you know, little university teams, and how you try and really build up that sort of suspense, so you paint a picture in the viewer's mind. Because I know that's something that casters really try and aim for, especially within, you know, highly team-based games like League of Legends and you know, other games like Counter-Strike is another one I can think of which focuses that a lot.
Yeah, so obviously my background in casting is League of Legends, Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone. Teamfight Tactics is my current main game on the NUEL at the moment.
Okay, quick shout out to Kelvin, who I think might actually be entering the finals of TFT, so keep an eye out on him.
Oh, okay. I will definitely keep an eye out for them as well. So, yeah, narratives is a really important thing. Depending on the kind of broadcast you're doing, it's very important to kind of have regular meetings and kind of uptick stuff. So with NUEL, what happens is normally myself and my co-caster. So for NUEL, I actually do TFT play-by-play casting now and no longer color. I was doing color. But I'm nowhere near knowledgeable enough on the game to be a color caster, so switch roles with my play-by-play caster, who is far more knowledgeable, and we've just done that comfortable switch. We basically will probably talk about a few of the players, because we've covered the league since its inception in the NUEL. We actually already have just a good idea of the players that are around. What we've also found is that feedback between the two caster pairings is really kind of a necessity, because you guys might not never cast together. There might be four of you in this kind of, you are the TFT casters. We might never actually directly cast together, but we need to all be on the same kind of page. So feedback is super important for improvement, not only because it can kind of snap out bad habits that you develop as a caster, because that is just a natural thing. I'm already picking up on the things I'm saying, and I'm like, I've been told not to do that. Don't do that, Alex. But hey, I'm only human, and I've just done a 9-hour stream, so I'll give myself a bit of relaxing there. But meetings and kind of feedback was a super important thing. With LJL, what myself and my two co-founders do with LJL OU, is we will once a week be talking about LJL and our thoughts on each of the teams. Doing a podcast is a good supplement for that, but if you want to just sit down for an hour with your co-casters, or if you're just doing casting on your own and you're just trying to look for a way to do casting, just do a bunch of games, reach out, and then once you've done like 10, 14, just do a game a day over random solo queue games, maybe over Pro League, but you just mute it. Just record yourself. Do it a bunch, and then once you finish doing that, then you can upload it to YouTube. Don't leave it unlisted. Don't post that, but just share it out to a few of your friends and just be like, hey, can you watch this game? I'm casting over it. What do you think? Because honestly, that's been the best way that I've gotten better at doing not only narrative discussions and kind of bringing these points up of knowing X, Y, and Z about all these players, but also just feeling more confident and actually sounding confident and that I actually know what I'm saying. Even if it might end up being a bit further from the truth than I'd like, at least if at the time you sound rather confident in what you're saying, people will just believe you. Which, if you make a faux pas, you can apologize later, which you should do, by the way, if on broadcast. If you make a faux pas, you give incorrect information, apologize, because people will forgive you way quicker than if you double down on Twitter.
It's not like music.
Don't do that. We've all seen that.
It's not like music where you can just, the best thing to do is just to carry on without pretending it ever happened. If you ever make a mistake, you're speaking to someone, so communication is key, I'm guessing.
Exactly.
Lovely. Right. We're sort of in the latter end of the interview, so let's have a little bit more of a, interesting, cheeky little meta sort of conversation. When you're casting a teamfight tactics at the moment, and this is also generally, talking about, the previous sort of streams you've done, like your League of Legends casting and even your Magic the Gathering casting. Were there any exciting players like now, then, or forever? Which you really enjoyed casting? What was particularly like? What particular playstyles do you really like captivate you and really gets you going in terms of really gets you inspired when you're already casting someone? Like, what are you trying to look for in a player?
I mean, the most amount of fun from a player at the end of the day is that you can tell that they're having fun playing the game. So in TFT at the moment, there's a player of the name of YLCO, who is just, you can tell they're just there and they want to try hard. And occasionally when we get their perspective, they are just the most try hard. They are like trying to scout everyone. They're going crazy. And you can just be like, they want to win. Like at the end of the day, all they care about is winning. And this is esports. This is the highest premier stuff for them at this moment in time for them. So they want to give it absolutely everything. And I love it when you see a player giving it their all. Because the last thing you want to do is just be watching a game and then you're like, oh, these players don't really care. It feels a bit boring. I know this is university esports, so some people might feel like that, but it can be really deflating as a caster where you're trying to amp everybody up and hype them up, and then you can just tell the players are kind of like, we just go through the motions, which, fair enough. I understand the fact of going through the motions, but it can be a bit, it can definitely make my job a fair bit more difficult. I will be honest there. I'm trying to think of another player because I've only said one, and I'm like, what's another one? And I've got like 2 or 3 names, and I'm just trying to think of the best one to go for. I know, Falador. So there's this. I mean, every time I see the name, I just think of the old school RuneScape Falador. So I'm like, I'm a complete RuneScape nut.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my god. Like I remember the old school days. It's mainly my sister who's like a old school like RuneScape nut. I think she still even plays it now. She plays like the newer version, which is crazy. But yeah, as you were saying. So what's about this player which is really interesting? Before I went on a weird tangent about RuneScape.
They just enjoy. They just always are doing hyper rolls. I believe they used to play one strategy in TFT, which was Elderwood. They would just hyper roll for Elderwood. They didn't care if they'd win or lose. They would just always go for it. And it would. But this was during like set 2.
I see.
No, it was set 2.
Okay.
It was like 2.5 or set 3, where they would just hyper rush it, and then they would just sit with it. And they didn't know if they'd win or not. They'd almost always top 4, and it was the most hilarious thing because this was like our first year casting over TFT, and they're just like, and we're like, we've got this one guy. who just doesn't care. He just wants to win, and he wants to just do his thing, really. And it was like, well, he's playing seriously, and he always tops 4, so it's not completely troll.
No, like, but that just amazes me that someone can just like hyper focus on like that, because I don't play. I mainly play like battlegrounds in Hearthstone at the moment in terms of like.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely geek out about some like the current meta. I think it's kind of like boring like at the moment. I miss.
Yeah, me too.
I miss the carnival. I miss the carnival like swing turns, man. But yeah, like in Hearthstone, like when I do like auto when I try and build up a composition, I mainly just go for whatever's there like first out for me. I never try and hard focus on a particular thing. And to hear someone who like not only does that but for one particular like archetype and does it so consistently, that's hilarious. That's honestly hilarious.
It makes honestly the job of casting and going through like just kind of watching the game unfold, it really does bring a smile to your face. You're like, it almost feels corny and cheesy to be like that, but at the same time it's like, this is fun. Like what I'm having fun talking over this game, and someone out there is doing what they enjoy doing, and I get to be kind of that showcase, that entertainer, that person that kind of breeds it. And I honestly, that's one of the things I really love about doing casting, is the fact that gets lost on like a lot of newer casters I've noticed, even though I'm a baby. By the way, I'm an absolute baby. I've only been doing this for like a year and a half, really. So I'm well aware, but I've definitely noticed there are some casters that have done it for about the same amount of time, or maybe a little bit more than me. They're incredibly jaded. They're like, oh, no, we have to be perfect in every way. I'm like, nah, dude, have fun.
Yeah,
have fun. I have way more fun when I'm like just upbeat, amped up. Like I am an absolute demon for getting hyped and just being an absolute hype boss, and I love doing that. Like that's what gets lost on people, I feel, is you're an entertainer first. And then you're an actual communicator of information second. If people are interested in what you're talking about, they'll probably hang around for a while longer. And that's what I always try and preach more. Ooh, just hit my microphone. That's why I try and preach more than anything else, is have fun, enjoy doing what you're doing. If the players are enjoying it, go along with them. If they're having fun and they're doing some weird stuff, hey, let them do it, because it's probably more entertaining for the viewers out there.
Yeah, I think that kind of perfectly wraps up in terms of what, like, I was about to ask you, what advice would you like end up on, because I think we're about to end the podcast. But yeah, is there anything else you want to add to some of our viewers, and some of our viewers both live on stream and also during our VODs, which will be editing and getting up on over the next weekend? Is there any sort of last statements you want to make?
I think if you are interested in getting into esports, fully understand the role. There are multiple people out there on the internet that are more than happy to exchange knowledge. If you are in a place where you can afford to do so, I am currently a part of a course called Enlight. I would highly recommend anyone that is interested in that. It is spelled Light, so ENLIGHT. It was started up by a bunch of people that have been within the esports industry for over 10 years, and they have created a course. They are all about trying to bring everyone up and just communicate it. Its founder, Eunice, is honestly, she's an incredible person. She will try as best she can to try and get everybody a job, and just kind of also teach people about the industry and get them involved in stuff they really like. So I would definitely shout that out to those that are interested in esports.
I'm actually gonna write that down myself. That might actually be an idea for a future interviewee. So, and like
absolutely. And just esports in general, if you want to get involved in one specific part of esports, I guarantee you should message probably 10 different people that are doing the job you want to do. Because if you do, at least 2 of them will probably get back to you. And one of them will probably actually have a half-decent conversation with you, and you could probably jump on Discord, talk to them for about 20 minutes, and then you have an idea on the route that you should take. Because with esports being such a young industry at the moment, there isn't you can't have the one shape fits all kind of thing at the moment. Everyone's role is going to be different. The way that they get there is going to be very different. And just because it worked for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for the other person, even if you're identical siblings. Like, it just won't work because it's very weird as an industry at the moment. I've heard people get crazy far. I think if you ever listen to Captain Flower's journey as a caster, he went from casting in his bedroom in his parents' place to 2 years later being on LCS. Which is crazy how quick he developed as a talent. But some people do. But there could also be people that have been around for about 5 years and they're only just...
Yeah, they only just got their
beat
big
yourself
shot.
up if it takes you a bit longer. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that is an amazing place to, end up on. So don't worry about sort of the time frame. Just go out and do it. Go do what you really want to do and try and reach out to, Discord is an open platform. I think a lot of people need to go, and all these guys are just all trying it friendly as possible, and they will reach out to you as possible. Well, with that being said, thank you very much, Mr. Mass Swan. You can catch him up on NUEL at the moment. He's going to be casting Teamfight Tactics every Thursday, if I'm right. And yeah,
every other Thursday. Yeah,
cool. You can also catch up onto his social medias and his and the unofficial Japanese League of Legends podcast. And yeah, thank you very much. Join us in the next 2 weeks. Our next guest, which I will just be announcing now, is going to be Alpha Kenny, who's the top NSC.
I know Kenny.
You know Kenny. I know Kenny too. He's a really good friend of mine. Alpha Kenny is the current runner of NSC's NSC Smash League and UFG. And we'll be having a chat with him about, setting it up, and also a big chat about Restoration, which was his big charity project, which won a top award for NUEL award for best charity event. Till then, thank you very much for joining Mass Swan, or Alex, I should probably say, and we'll see you next.